right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome those who are returning, those who are coming for the first time. Welcome those who are watching us online. I always say it's a pleasure and an honor to be here talking about Spiritism, to be here disseminating, doing a little bit that I can do to help the cause, to help Spiritism, talking about some of these things that I have so much passion about. But I have to say today, it's an extra honor to be here. Because it's been 1 year since I officially joined Conscious Living, and it's in this month we are we are reaching 18 years of life. So Conscious Living as our spiritual home, because the title here refers to spiritual home, aka the Spiritist Center, and the importance of the Spiritist Center in our lives, to ourselves, to all of us here today, the incarnate ones and the discarnate ones, from all sides of life. So it is an extra honor to be here today talking about our dear Conscious Living. That's like I said, completing 18 years old. It's not a minor anymore. So be careful, Susanna. And I want to start talking about the Spiritist Center itself. And Kardec thought of the Spiritist Center as a living, pulsating cell, a place of work for everyone, of solidarity among everyone, and of tolerance towards everyone. So Allan Kardec, he was a disciple of Pestalozzi, and he changed the last word there. But the idea of the Spiritist Center as this pulsating cell where Spiritism can flourish, can grow, can spread. And he used the three words almost like a model for Spiritism: the word solidarity and tolerance. And then in parentheses there, towards whom and for whom and among whom. But when we're talking about Spiritist Center per se, there's another author who I'm going to review in a second who thought of the Spiritist Center, or mentioned the Spiritist Center as having three pillars. And I tried to do like a little animation there, or a little like image, so we can visualize the three pillars of a Spiritist Center. A house, like we have our house here. And the first one is a word that even in Portuguese we don't have in the dictionary, but this author used the word spiritize. And I actually asked a few people that speak English very well, I said, how would you translate this word in Portuguese? None of them said, I don't know. I mean, all of them said, I don't know, I'm not sure. So it's spiritize, which is similar to spiritualize. It's kind of like the same idea, but regarding Spiritism specifically. So spiritize, that's the first thing. And spiritize, according to this author, refers to rescuing the one who attends the center and enabling Spiritism, or the teachings of Spiritism, to be introjected in their own being, and then eventually in that, so that it becomes a way of life, which is something that I always talk about in the lectures, about we internalizing the knowledge of Spiritism so we can externalize that knowledge in our most truest self, and we can grow. So internalizing to externalize. So spiritize, again, introject the teachings of Spiritism. The second one is to qualify the individual who comes to the Spiritist Center. And again, by individual here, I don't only mean those who are listening to me with the earthly ears, also the other ones as well. So qualifying refers to deepening or helping to deepen the knowledge of Spiritism and improving that knowledge every day. So spiritize, qualify, and the last one is humanize, which is an idea it's a mixture of the tolerance and the solidarity that we have from Kardec's model. So the humanize is to develop this feeling of solidarity, according to this author, this feeling of tolerance, so we can engage in charitable actions. Charity, which is such a big pillar for Spiritism and for the teachings of Jesus. And this author is nonetheless Joanna de Angelis, the same one that Susanna read the message from, Happy Life Psychographed by Divaldo. So Joanna mentioned about these three pillars for the Spiritist Center. In the Spiritist Center, I'm going to talk on the top right part of my slides. I like to leave the source for that slide. Unfortunately, we do not have this book in English.
coming up.
It's coming. Marcelo said it's coming, but it's by Celie Calva-Schubert, and this book is excellent for us to understand everything that goes on in the Spiritist Center from the invisible side. So like the invisible dimension. So a lot of the things that I'm going to be bringing here today, I'd say like 50-60% are from this book. So I definitely recommend those who want to learn more. But the Spiritist Center, Sueli, the author, she's going to tell us that is much more than the physical house that serves as its headquarters. It transcends, look at this word, it transcends the walls that surround it and the roof that covers it. It is a spiritual complex in which work is carried out on the two planes of life. Those who are in the flesh and those who are not in the flesh in the moment. The incarnate and the discarnate one. And we're going to be talking a lot about that, which she says is the extra-physical and the physical. And with the two humanities, that of the incarnate and that of the discarnate spirits. And the Spiritist Center is, another thing she says that I like is almost, she refers to it as a safe haven for those who seek light, who seek enlightenment and comfort. And that is so much true. If we think about all of us, what drawn us to Spiritism, what brings us to the Spiritist Center, it's definitely embedded some way and somehow in those three things. And that's why the Spiritism as the consoler helps us with that. In the Spiritist Center, we then find, he's also going to say, we find the opportunities to strengthen ties with spirituality through the study of the gospel. That's another important aspect as well, as we saw, spiritize, humanize, qualify. The vast majority of those who attend the center, with the capital C, do so driven by the problems and suffering that torment them. So a lot of people, she's saying here, who attend or the people who seek out a Spiritist center do so because of the problems and the suffering that's afflicting them. So trying to find, like I said, like I mentioned, like a safe haven, a place where they can find comfort, where they can find some solace. She also said, and I like this quote here, they resort to Spiritism as shipwrecks of moral storms who cling to a lifeline. Us being the shipwreck of a moral storm, because as we know, moral is still, the moral advancement is still the one that we're searching and we're trying and we're struggling to overcome, to take that next step. It's not the intellectual advancement, it's the moral advancement. So she's saying the shipwrecks of moral storms, I like that idea, to cling to a lifeline. And the word she actually uses is like a flotsam. So if we imagine like when a ship wrecks and you have the pieces of wood shattered, floating about, imagine somebody who's trying to save themselves. They're going to grab onto anything that floats, basically. So it's this idea of almost like a moral desperation that we're seeking to overcome. Specialized spirits, therefore, screen the discarnate spirits who will enter, always targeting those who are in a position to receive the benefits. So she's already starting to talk a little bit about the activities and some of the work from the benefactors of the Spiritist Center, in which they almost, there's like a screening process of those who are going to come in here. Because if everybody, and we're going to talk in a bit about magnetic defense, if everybody was allowed to come here, all the obsessors, all those who want to destroy the work we're trying to do, or those people who, she even mentions the Spiritist Center being a place that has a lot of people who are in the developing their mediumship, and they have like a very strong mediumship, but it doesn't come with the discipline that's necessary. That would certainly shatter the harmony that we have here right now. If we notice the Spiritist Center, and we notice like even like the vibrations, like the whole environment here, there's a harmony, and there's a spiritual team that helps to keep that balance, that harmony. But even them, as we'll see, even those who are left outside, the discarnate ones that are left outside, are not without help. And we'll see in a little bit how. So there's a spiritual planning that goes, and this is from a book, Psychographed by Divaldo, and they talk here to Dr. Ignacio. He's talking in this book, and he's saying that the provisions and care of the greater spirituality are immense regarding the planning and the organization of Spiritist institution. He's saying in the first person of the plural, we have known for a long time that spiritual plans precede, they come before, those of the incarnate workers, which is why it is commonly said that when thinking about and designing a Spiritist work, that the work was already built on the spiritual plane. They're talking about the spiritual planning of a Spiritist center when there's an inauguration, or there are plans to start a Spiritist center, just like this one. Any serious work. And they're talking about, he's talking about there's this planning that goes in the Spiritist realm, or the spiritual realm, for the creation of a Spiritist center. So nothing is done out of nowhere without any planning from the spirituality. Each and every work of the good has the help of the spirituality. And they give an example in this book about Eurípides Barçanufo and the Allan Kardec School, which is in Sacramento, Minas Gerais, the state of Minas Gerais in Brazil. And they're talking how Eurípides Barçanufo founded this school called Allan Kardec. It's the first in the world that has the teachings of Spiritism applied to it. And they're saying that Eurípides Barçanufo, you guys can search it up later, has had a great history, albeit short, in this material plane. But he founded this school, and the idea or the planning for the school came when he was there before he came and became incarnated again. So he was already one of those who helped found or to inaugurate this school there, and then he got the same idea, the same plans came with that mission, and came and did the same here. So there's a lot that goes on, basically, without us even realizing when we're talking about the running, the foundation, everything of a Spiritist center. There's a spiritual planning that goes on, and the initial plans for founding a Spiritist center take place, like I was saying, in the spiritual realm many years in advance, when the spiritual team takes on the responsibility of guiding and advising the future activities that will be developed there. So Susanna was here talking about the courses. She was talking about all of those things. We have the public meetings. We have the medium mystic meetings. We have all of those things, the teaching for the kids. All of that planning requires a lot of effort, and it is done in accordance with the spiritual guidelines, if we think about it. So the Spiritist guides for a Spiritist center, they discuss these things beforehand with those who are going to be running it in the physical realm. And they're saying here, this is done for those who will reincarnate with such programs. So a lot of the people who end up starting a Spiritist center have done this planning way, way before they actually reincarnate. They reincarnate with that mission, with that purpose, with that goal. To establish these commitments, the karmic records of those who will be at the forefront of the work on the material plane are studied, invitations are made, plans are outlined and projected for the future. So what they're saying here is, it has to be in accordance, or it has to be congruent with what that person that's going to be the founder of that Spiritist center, or those people, has to be congruent with their mission in that specific reincarnation, their purpose, and they have to have this sort, and they have the backing of the spiritual guides. So again, this is for us to realize how much goes on behind, our material eyes, and behind even our knowledge, when we start to realize all of the effort and the planning that goes behind starting a Spiritist center, but also running and continuing a Spiritist center. And then Sueli goes on to talk about how the project of having a Spiritist center to disseminate Spiritism provides opportunities for spiritual growth, for rescue and redemption and reunion of kindred souls. And I like this last part, because as we come to find when we're in the Spiritist movement, a lot of the times we have that sentiment that we can't really explain. Like, I feel like I've known this person before. I feel like I've met this person before. And we have that sort of connection because we probably have met them before. From different trials and tribulations, in other containers. But there's opposition. I put in quotation marks here because Sueli is going to talk about how, and we know for any work of the good, there are those who persist in the evil. Those who don't want that work to be done for one reason or another. So Sueli is going to talk about some strategies that the inferior planes, these spirits that are still erring in evil tendencies, they try to impose, and she mentions a few from their mediumistic meetings throughout the years, what they found. So I brought here some of the ones that she talks about. That these spirits try to instill discouragement, dismay, and disbelief. So questioning the workers, questioning the mediums, questioning those who are there about if they really believe in what they're saying, if they really are doing what they're preaching. Because they come here, they preach, and they go outside and they do something completely different. They become different people. They try to instill that discouragement. They can try to demonstrate that they are stronger. Oh, you guys are 6 people here, we have 600 out there that don't want the Spiritist Center to go on. Just examples, obviously. Exaggerate our weaknesses. Oh, you guys are all flawed. What are you talking about? More improvement, loving one another? You can barely stand one another. Again, these are things that the inferior planes try to do to us. And again, it's their strategies. Pit us against each other. Bluff to confuse and distort the truth. Just a few of the strategies that Sueli mentions that comes in these mediumistic meetings when these spirits come and they try to do those things, or they mention the plans to try to do those things. So again, we have to be very vigilant. We have to be very certain in what we're saying, what we're doing, how we're carrying ourselves, so we don't fall prey to these strategies. And that's very important for us as spiritists, as workers in the realms of spiritism, for us to be aware. Then we're going to talk about the spiritual team. So again, we never work alone here in the incarnate world. For those who are, again, incarnate ones listening to me right now, there's always a spiritual team behind every serious work, and this work that's done here for 18 years is a serious work. So there's definitely a spiritual team that helps and guides us in everything that we do here. A whole army, so he's going to say, a whole army of Christ workers labors in each nucleus of your activities related to Spiritism, calling you to the enlightened feeling, to the active virtue, to the superior department of intimate life. All things that we can put into practice when we're working in the Spiritist Center, be it with lectures, be it with cleaning the floor, paying the bills, organizing things for kids, bringing some of the pastries we have out there, like all the work that goes behind this, the library, everything can help us grow, can help us can provide us opportunities to contribute. The resources of superior spirituality far exceed our precarious conditions. And I put bold and underline a few things here. The resources of the superior spirituality, meaning the team that's behind us, far exceeds our precarious condition in the way that, by condition here, we can also understand knowledge, how much we realize that's going on behind, and how much we are being helped by the spiritual team that is part of any Spiritist center, any serious Spiritist center. Far exceeds, and to me that's very comforting. Because I already think of some things, I can start thinking of some things that they do to help us, but if it far exceeds my precarious knowledge, great. It means we have more help than we realize. There are no improvisations, and everything is provided so that the protection of the Most High is present when we incarnates administer the Spiritist centers seriously, with love and fidelity to the guidelines of the Spiritist doctrine. Again, there are no improvisations, there is no randomness in the work that's done here, in the planning that's done here, and the executions. Not just the planning, the execution as well. This is for us to become hopeful about everything that we're trying to do here. And then I brought the architects in this book, Psychograph by Chico. Unfortunately, we don't have this book in English. But this book, they talk about the architects, and I took a little bit of the book to put here, and it says that in every meeting with a specific purpose, there is a defined mental center in the environment to which all the thoughts of both incarnate and discarnate spirits converge, come together, they converge. This center is a reservoir of very subtle plasma coming from the mental vibration of those present, enabling the creation of thought forms. And thought forms, I italicized there because it's a little more technical, but the idea, the basic idea is everybody that's here right now, incarnate and discarnate, there's the mental vibrations that we are emitting, the architects, they can use that, and there's a reservoir, and it's being used by all sorts of work, including the fluidic panels, which I'll talk in a little bit of what the fluidic panels are. The spiritual team then, this is from the book The Missionaries of the Light, psychographed by Chico from the Spirit André Luis. The activities that are affected by the spiritual team are countless, and affected in a good way, are countless and require spirits specialized in different areas. Look how interesting that is. Spirits specialize in different areas. And they go on to talk about doctors, nurses, priests, pastors. There's so many different types of specializations that the spirits, the discarnate ones, can bring to the table when we're doing any serious work in Spiritism. Each group has the guides and protector it deserves. If the group commits itself to serving selflessly within the gospel of Christ, supported by the Spiritist doctrine, willing to love unconditionally, it will have support from a corresponding team of discarnate companions of the highest spiritual standard. So us having the guides and protectors that we deserve, meaning how we get as much as we put in, basically. If we're doing the work with, willing to love unconditionally, and we're supported by the gospel, with the doctrine being our solid ground, and all of those things, we're going to have the help that is congruent to how much we're putting in. And then, we don't have this book, I don't think, in English, but talks about the magnetic defense, and I want to bring in here. There's an image here that we can, or like a drawing, an art, that we can kind of like understand what goes on. But in this book, Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, who is the spiritual author, he talks about the magnetic defense of the Spiritist Center. And specifically, this one they're talking about is Spiritist Center honoring Chico Xavier, and I forgot what city it was. Probably Minas Gerais, the state. But I forgot what city it was. But he's saying that there is, again, the spiritual team helps keep those that are trying to break the harmony at bay, or those who are not ready to come and learn yet, or to feast in this banquet of light yet. But they are kept at bay for a reason, but even they are not without the help. So, and the part of Manuel Filomeno talks about is this magnetic defense, and he says that they use equipments that we even don't know about. Like even reading it, and this was done decades ago, the psychograph decades ago. Even nowadays, when you read it, you truly don't understand, because we don't have a specific instrument like that in today's world with all technological advancements. So the spirituality, again, far exceeds our precarious condition. They have these instruments that help keep those at bay. Those, again, the obsessors, those who are trying to break the harmony, those who are trying to derail the work that's being done in any Spiritist center that is serious. So let's talk about the lecture or the talks or what's happening right now, basically. They're saying about the lecture a few things. So one of the things is during the course of the doctrinal exposition or the lecture, the talk, great support is provided to the public. Specialized teams assist those with favorable receptive spiritual/mental conditions, medicating them, and even performing spiritual surgeries. This is important. So even by being here, there's already the work that's being done way before the passes. Way before the passes. And that's done, of course, by the spiritual team that helps And even they say here, even spiritual surgeries. And we have examples of, the symposiums and and conferences where there's a lot of spiritual surgeries happening there without us, the incarnate ones, realizing what's going on around us. Mm-hmm. And that's beautiful. That brings so much hope that we're not without help. We're not without aid. And one of the things they talk about in the lectures that was interesting, and I honestly didn't know that when I was researching to do this topic, is they mentioned that the spiritual team, even remember that there were the people that because of the magnetic defense they're left outside, but even during the lectures they are getting some help. For some of the lectures they put almost like microphones and speakers outside, and again these are all in the spiritual realm, for those who are there to listen to what's being said. Mm-hmm. Look how brilliant that is. Look how again, we don't even realize how much work goes on, and I think that brings a lot of hope. And to me as a speaker today, it brings even more responsibility, because who knows who's going to be listening to these teachings, to these things, to the message of the gospel. Again, nobody is without help, even those who are left outside of the center. There's also more. In the book Between the Two Worlds, again, talking about the architects, it said that they often use the resources of the fluidic panels to bring the exhibitor's comments to life, favoring the understanding of the discarnate spirits who are present. So, again, look at this. There's this plasma, and we see that in the back there, the spirit, the discarnate spirit, sort of like setting that up in a way in this art here. And there's this fluidic panel that shows images, very vibrant, like living images. If there's such thing exists, it does exist. We just can't visualize or conceptualize it yet. But these images are livid, and the way living, and the way they describe is so beautiful that it's almost as if it was like a 3D or like a 4D, I guess.
5D maybe.
A 5D maybe, it's a 10D.
Yeah.
And what we have is the scarlet ones who are observing the lecture, who are paying attention, they have images. So imagine when the speaker comes and talks about something that happened, I don't know, a parable or a time of Christ, or when this happened. Can we imagine having those images come up in a fluidic panel? How beautiful that would be. And that's what they do to help even the discarnate spirits to follow the lecture along. And again, when we're talking about spiritual planning, even the choices of the theme for these lectures is interesting, because when I come to do these lectures, I always send to regardless of the Spiritist center that I go to, I always send to the person that's responsible for creating the schedule 10, 12 topics. Because they usually say, oh, you pick one. What do you want to talk about? I said, no. Here's a couple of topics. Choose one, or let me know if there's one specific that you like me to do. Because I know that they have the intuition. They are guided by those who organize all of the work that's done here. Lectures is one of those works. All of the work that's done here, I know they're guided by that. Today specifically, Abigail asked me to bring something about Spiritist Center, but usually I send her like 10, 12 topics. She picks one and I let her pick. Because I want them to pick. Because I know like that whatever they pick is probably what needs to be said or presented on in that specific day. Now let's move on to another activity of the Spiritist Center, the passes. This fluidic transfer, magnetic, imposition, however we want to call it, the passes. And I put in quotation marks as it's from a word in Portuguese that even books in English sometimes utilize that. So André, this is from the Inner Realms of Mediumship. When the author, André Luiz, he goes to visit a Spiritist center, and then he finds a special atmosphere during the passes formed by the thoughts, prayers, and aspirations of those who come to us, to the center, bringing the best of themselves. Again, how important it is for us when we're here to be vibrating, like Susanna mentioned at the beginning, to be vibrating in in this, same wavelength, so we can donate our energies and receive as much as we give as well. And Hilario, who was also learning about it, they were with Aulus, which is basically like the instructor at the moment with Andre and Hilario. Hilario asked an interesting question in that scene. He's like, oh, is this, what about the mediums who go and give the passes, and do they end up tired, like if they have to do a lot of passes in that specific session, like once they're done? And Aulus says not at all. They receive to give in the position of links. And then he goes on to say that if the medium, after the end of the passes, if it's physically exhausted and all of that, he says it's probably because of something that's going on with the medium's body. Like, could be a disease, could be something that's going on that's not in harmony, that's causing that. Not necessarily that he had to, help 10 people instead of 2 during the passes. And that's interesting for us who are pass givers and all of that. And André Luiz even saw that. I thought it was beautiful. He said that he was surprised with the balsamic and luminous environment that is present during the passes. That's why we turn off the lights. We try to create this sort of harmonic environment for that specific time. The missionaries. So this is from the Missionaries of the Light. Still talking about the passes. The missionary of magnetic assistance, the pass giver, on the crust, us, or here in our sphere, needs to have great control over himself, spontaneous balance of feelings, accentuated love for others, high understanding of life, vigorous faith, and deep trust in the divine power. Just that. It's an easy list. So any of the past givers here, if you guys don't have that, don't forget about it. Of course, I'm joking, because Alexander also says, all those who show desire to provide fraternal assistance to others receive assistance from kind entities. So even if we don't have all of that, just the desire to do good and to put into practice that desire that we have to help, to give, receive the assistance of kind entities, of these benefactors, the spiritual benefactors that are always here to help us, always here to support us. And if we think about it, all those elevated entities, they are created simple and ignorant as well. And we only progress through, our moral progress through the exercise of charity. And it is by giving that we receive. So yes, let's not fret if we don't have all of those things that are mentioned there, because any selfless worker finds the help that he or she needs. If the practice, and I love that he says this too, and that's why I wanted to bring it here, if the practice of good were limited to completely good spirits of the highest order, can we imagine? Human redemption would be impossible. Any amount of goodwill and spirit of service receives the best attention from us. We are not alone. As I said here in my other lecture of the invisible influence, we are not alone. We're never without aid. So any work in the good is going to receive that assistance that's needed so that work can be continued. And of course, human redemption would be impossible, because in our trajectory, we all make mistakes. And I say trajectory in a macro sense, meaning our different reincarnations, different trials and tribulations. We all are on that same path, but we need to put to work. We need to exercise all those things that we're learning here. It is essential, therefore, still about the passes, that there is an awareness on our part of the magnitude and complexity, this is really saying, magnitude and complexity of spiritual labors in order to participate in a more efficient and productive way. However, this is not a factor that leads to mysticism, but rather to, and I underline there, to responsibility. So understanding the magnitude and complexity shouldn't be something that's we're gonna be in awe, so much awe that we become paralyzed. No. It should bring us responsibility. It should bring us this responsibility to do the work that's necessary, to do the work that is required of us. And on both sides of life, this applies to, because As much as we hear that ignorance is a bliss, not necessarily a bliss. It's actually not a bliss. And the more we know, the more we have the responsibility to put into practice. Thus, it is not the color of the medium's clothes or his gestures or the room being blue or white that will influence the quality of energy transmission at the moment of the pass, but rather his mind boosting and directing the fluidic energies, his desire to serve, his ability to show solidarity with those who are there and to love them, to love those who are trying to help with the passes. So it's not something that's physical or like some sort of like dance or whatever that, some of the mysticism around that, that's going to make that, pass effective. It's not that. What makes it effective is this mind boosting and directing the energies, the desire to serve and to love the person they were trying to help. And Sueli mentioned this analogy that I thought was interesting, so I thought to bring it here, that the pass giver is like an outlet, like a power outlet. With the power outlet, if we think about it, the energy is not the power outlets, but it passes through the power outlets to something else. And that energy, when it's something else, it's also not the outlet. And if we have a defective outlet, we're not going to be able to have, it's not going to do its function. It's not going to pass on that energy. So it's as she said, it's like the pass giver is a little bit like a power outlet, almost like this intermediary. And I like that analogy. Now we're talking about the mediumistic meeting. Again, we're going through the list of activities of a Spiritist center, so we understand the complexity and magnitude of everything that goes on in a Spiritist center. And the mediumistic meeting, according to Kardec, and this is from the Medium's book, is a meeting. A meeting is a collective being whose qualities and properties are the result of the totality of those of its members, and that may be compared to a bundle of rods. So it's saying like this bundle of rods that together, so the what's that saying? The sum is greater. No, what's the sum of its parts? I forgot the saying. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? I think. Okay. Well, never mind. But it will come later. But the idea of all these rods, like individually, these rods are not as powerful, as strong. But when they're put together, they become as strong. And there's a Japanese saying with the bamboo as well. The bamboo is, a little bit of bamboo can bend but not break. But if you grab a bunch of bamboo, you can't really it can't really break. So it's almost like in the work of good, if we think of ourselves as bamboos, we're swayed by these evil tendencies that we still have, but we don't break. And the more we're together, the more bamboos we have, the harder it's going to be for the work of evil to take place. I guess we can take that analogy instead of the other one. Thus, whenever men assemble together, they have around them an invisible assembly sympathizing with their good or bad qualities, and this is a matter of course, and without any evocation being made or even thought of. So of course, we sympathize and we bring about those that are in line with our thinking, in sync with our thinking. And the mediumistic meeting here, I brought some data that's really shared from a study that was done over 2 years with Chico Xavier, even in, I think it's like 1962 to 64, if I'm not mistaken. But there were 672 communications from suffering spirits, and there is data to see what are they bringing, what sort of problems are they bringing, what's their their outlook. So 397 came in need of moral assistance, 268 cases of mental alienation, some cases of mental suffering, some newly discarnate spirits who were coming to the mediumistic meetings over that span of 2 years, case of lycanthropy and suicide. Of course, if we do the math, there's more than 62 because some of these overlap. These categories overlap. But I thought to bring this because to me it was interesting that the first one, meaning like the ones that are almost 2/3 are in need of moral assistance. And isn't that the plague? Isn't that what we're trying to overcome, our moral inclinations? I mean, the lack of them, I guess. The lack of morality that we're trying to overcome. And the spirits who are discarnate ones coming to Spiritists to a mediumistic meeting are also displaying that same need. And to me, it's very congruent to everything that is said by Kardec, by all the Spiritist authors that come and talk about this need for moral development. Some spiritual benefactors have compared a space dedicated to the practice of mediumship, specifically this obsession work, to a surgical room. And there's this author that says that on the day of the meeting, the place undergoes rigorous asepsis in order to rid it and preserve it of psychic larvae, which are created by vicious minds. I mean, remember the thought forms we're talking about? Some of that's going and creating those, he calls it psychic larvae. I thought was an interesting terminology there. Pernicious thought forms, again here, of depressing vibrations, all of which constitute the microbicidal invaders of the lesser regions. So, again, they're talking about how there's all this work that's done by the spiritual benefactors in that place that's going to be the medium, that's going to hold the mediumistic meeting. Again, look at how much thing goes on without our awareness in the background. Camilo Castelo Branco is a spiritual author, and Yvonne sacrographed a few of one of his books, Memoirs of Suicide. It's a great book that I recommend. He says that it would be as if the physical environment were without walls and ceiling, and a large space was superimposed on it, sometimes like an amphitheater. And they talk about the mediumistic meetings, the space for that, having this, but also the space for the lectures. Sometimes having that, or space for when there's like a conference that's being done, there's the physical walls. They say that it's almost as if it was an amphitheater with more seatings for the discarnate spirits to be there and to be able to participate as well. So it goes way beyond these 4 physical walls and the roof that we have. Connection, they said that sometimes there's connection with other environments. They have their own furniture, in the spiritual plane, stretchers, electronic equipment. There's a whole array of things that are there, let's say in a mediumistic meeting, that we incarnate ones, we don't realize, but it's there to help those who come in need of assistance. In summary then, we have a well-oriented Spiritist center which follows the path of light, provides its workers and visitors with a true place of peace and intimate renewal. Its spiritual ambience is perceived by everyone, finding there the vibratory harmony inducing calm and peace. And then Joanna says that, and I thought this was beautiful, that she says that Christ calls us once again to our awakening and to the work of personal upliftment, which ultimately is the upliftment of the earth itself, the law of society. How, remember the bundle analogy? The law of society. How our own upliftment, when it's done properly, is going to uplift those who are around us, and as a society we can grow. As our planet, we can go to the transition that our planet needs. We are the cells of the universal organism, universal she's saying, that is still sick in the liberating process under the therapy of the restored gospel. So under the therapy of the consoler, of the restored gospel, of Spiritism, who came almost 200 years ago to provide us knowledge, to shed light into understandings that before were unknown to us, mystical perhaps. But we have that knowledge now. We have the work in front of us. And the Spiritist Center, as we see, there's so much more that goes beyond our physical eyes can gather. And for us to be hopeful and know that any work in the good is not going to go without aid. And to, again, to respect, to honor a Spiritist Center, whatever that Spiritist Center may be. And for us to continue to do the work that Christ wants us to do. I wish everybody a blessed week. Thank you.
Thank you.